VMware Cloud Foundation Specialist, V2, 5V0-31.22 exam dumps questions are the latest version in the whole market. 1. Which two features are supported when implementing NSX Federation? Choose 2. A. DHCP, B. NAT operations, C. Identity firewall, D. DHCP dynamic binding, E. Load balancer. 2. Which two options can be used to create a new VMware Cloud Foundation V workload domain? Choose 2. A. Cloud Builder UL, B. Power CLI, C. SDDC Manager UL, D. vCenter UL, E. REST API. 3. A systems administrator is tasked to deploy a management domain during VMware Cloud Foundation bring-up process. What are the minimum hardware requirements for the management cluster? A. 4 vSAN ready nodes, 192 GB RAM per server, and 210 GB NICs. B. 6 vSAN ready nodes, 256 GB RAM per server, and 410 GB NICs. C. 8 vSAN ready nodes, 256 GB RAM per server, and 210 GB NICs. D. 2 vSAN ready nodes, 192 GB RAM per server, and 410 GB NICs. 4. Which two functionalities does a NSX Tier 0 gateway provide to a vSphere with Tanzu deployment? Choose 2. A. Layer 2 switching, B. Connectivity to all Tier 1 gateways, C. Connectivity to physical networks and routers, D. Gateway for segments, E. Downlink connections to segments. 5. Which three options are valid use cases for multiple clusters in a workload domain? Choose 3. A. One stretched cluster across 2 regions and 2 workload domains, B. Workload domain with multiple clusters in one rack, C. One cluster stretching 2 workload domains, D. 2 clusters forming one stretched workload domain, E. Workload domain with multiple availability zones each containing clusters, F. One cluster distributed across 2 racks and 1 workload domain. 6. Which two configuration steps must a VMware Cloud Foundation administrator apply to achieve north-south connectivity while setting up an Edge VM node for a workload domain from the SDDC Manager user interface? Choose 2. AOSPF configuration, B. vSphere VDS uplinks, C. NSX VDS uplinks, D. Tor switches VRFs, E. BGP configuration. 7. A VMware Cloud Foundation administrator is required to enable workload management, vSphere with Tanzu, on an existing workload domain cluster, which is currently licensed with a vSphere Enterprise Plus license. Which action, if any, is required to complete this task? A. Add a license for vSphere with Tanzu with sufficient CPU capacity to both the SDDC Manager and vCenter server, and then assign the license to the cluster in vCenter server. B. Add a license for vSphere with Tanzu with sufficient CPU capacity to the SDDC Manager inventory, and then assign the license to the cluster in SDDC Manager. C. No action is required since SDDC Manager licenses include an entitlement for vSphere with Tanzu. D. No action is required since the vSphere Enterprise Plus license supports vSphere with Tanzu. 8. An administrator is planning to deploy an edge cluster in a VMware Cloud Foundation environment. Which three NSX components are automated during this deployment? Choose 3. A. Segments for VM workloads. B. Tier 0 VRF gateway configuration. C. Tier 0 and Tier 1 gateway configuration. D. Edge uplink profile configuration. E. Edge VM deployment. F. Transport node profile configuration. 9. A VCF administrator is preparing to configure scheduled backups for the SDDC manager. What must the administrator register as an external component to complete this task? A. NFS server. B. SFTP server. C. ISCSI server. D. SMB server. 10. Which three options are valid use cases for multiple clusters in a workload domain? Choose 3. A. Workload domain with multiple availability zones each containing clusters. B. Workload domain with multiple clusters in one rack. C. One cluster stretching 2 workload domains. D. 2 clusters forming one stretched workload domain. E1 stretched cluster across 2 regions and 2 workload domains. F1 cluster distributed across 2 racks and 1 workload domain.